Hello and welcome to Make Love Real, How to Create More Love in Your Life. I'm your host, Saenz. And in this segment, we have Nancy Mueller. And I'm excited about Nancy because she's really about transformation and in a loving way. And what is more important than actually having the support and love? But also, she goes by Sensei. And so she's going to kick your booty. And so I'm really excited to introduce you to Nancy. Welcome, Nancy, to the show.
Hi, Mia. Thanks for having me. Neat trick if I could do it, right? Kick somebody's booty through the computer, through
With
the
love,
internet.
with love, right?
Yeah, there you go. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Kisses and hugs.
I love that. So share with us your journey on how you got here and what you want people to know about you.
Excellent. Thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start with when I started my business. I started my business in 1998. I was a student, competitor, and teacher of the martial arts. And I went into studying martial arts because of a very traumatic childhood. My childhood was full of fear, self-doubt, limiting beliefs based on mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse that escalated to sexual abuse by the age of 12. So I thought if I could fight like Bruce Lee, man, no one would ever lay a hand on me again. And that's quite the opposite of love, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fighting, that energy of fighting. But when you're raised on violence, violence seems to be the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I studied in the martial arts, the more I understood the mindset piece of it. And I started moving from the physical to the mental, the mindset. That's where my coaching transitioned from. And this is what I share today. Everything is about love. And if it's not love, it's not right. And it's not about right or wrong, but if it's not love, give yourself permission to say, oh, I don't have to deal with this. I only want love in my life. So Mia, that's why I'm very excited to do this segment with you.
I'm excited too. And that aspect I really wasn't clear on about your background in martial arts to the extent that it was. And so that's really great to hear. I remember when my son was, gosh, I can't remember when he started martial arts. He must have been 4. And he was just so excited. I used to take the class with him because it was, at the time I realized, wow, this is really powerful. Didn't stick with it for too long. I think a year is all we did it, but it warms my heart that you went that path because it is very powerful for people and very transformational. It's beautiful.
Well, and there are 5 children in my family. I have 4 siblings, and I'm the only one that took this path, 1 out of 5. So it's about understanding that we all have a choice. And I'm very fond, as you know, Mia, of saying life is all about choices. But sometimes we don't know that there is a choice, or we think that the choice is in either or, you know, the fighting or the love direction. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you feel mired in that self-doubt, that self-loathing, that low self-worth, sometimes it can be difficult to grasp onto that there really is love in you, that you really do come from love and light. And when that happens, it's so important to be open to reaching out or allowing the people to come into your life who can show you a different way, a different path.
It's beautiful. So let's jump into recognizing and eliminating the imposter, because that almost goes along with recognizing the path, right?
It
Choosing a
does.
different path.
And it's one of my pet topics, I guess is the best way to say it, because, you know, as I talk to women, one of the things that I would hear over and over and over again was, who am I to ... you know, fill in the dot. Who am I to be that coach, that transformation person, that I don't know, you get your degree and then you don't feel like you deserve to put your shingle out and say, look, this is what I do now. So we're full of self-doubt, and that's what the imposter syndrome is all about. The imposter syndrome it's actually a psychological term, and it comes from feeling like a fraud. Okay, I've done this, but am I really qualified to do that? And it doesn't matter if you're a woman in business, if you're a woman raising children, if you're a woman running a company. It doesn't matter what area of your life you've chosen to be most involved in, if you feel like a fraud, if that little voice inside your head is constantly telling you, who are you to think you can teach this or show this or rise up or level up or rise above your station in life? You deserve to love yourself and just sit in the thought and the feeling and the belief that you do deserve it. You deserve it and so much more, because I really believe that you could take the most successful person and that person is still not doing all of that they're capable of. So that really leaves us with a huge playground, to play on.
It's really interesting, the capability that we have as humans to be and do. They say we use 10% of our brain.
Yeah.
Most people live less than 10% joyfully their life. When you move into this type of transformational space, what's on the other side is so incredible. And you just want to challenge it more, not challenge it, but do more.
Right.
You begin to feel like you're a bionic being almost, right? Like the bionic woman or the bionic man. It's really about, on a cellular level, you become restructured. So what would be some of the, and it's hard without a specific question, but what would be some of the feelings, beliefs, or emotions that you would guide people towards? What type of processes do you do that would guide them towards? You talk about your higher self, I talk about connecting to self-love, which is both the same. So
exactly.
What type of processes or connection stuff would you recommend to people?
Well, one of the challenges that I find over and over is anyone who was raised in a religious dogma. Sometimes those people have the biggest challenges to step back and just say, you know what, I am a love and light. I am pure love and light. Because those of us that were raised in a religious dogma, we're taught to believe that God is this man who sits up on a throne with a beard and a white robe and says, you're good, you're bad, you're right, you're wrong, you need to be forgiven, you need to go to hell, you need to whatever. And that's not the way that it is. So, but when you're raised with something and it's so steeped in your belief, it can be very, very challenging to let go of that belief. Because as much as you start to say, well, what if there is something different out there? That fear of hell and damnation that you were raised with is always in the back of your mind. So you really have a fear of believing anything different. And that right there can hold you very tightly to where you are. So to say to someone, you are God, God is you, you are the creator's mind, the mind created you, God thought you into existence, God is pure love, pure light, and anything not of pure love and pure light is not of God, therefore it's your ego self. And that can be difficult for people to embrace, to even be open to. But once you start, I look at it like, just think of it like a little pinprick of light. You're in a really dark room and you see just this little pinprick of light and you say, I'm going to follow that. I'm going to keep going towards that light. And as you get there, it opens bigger and bigger and bigger. And the closer you get to the light, you feel this warm feeling, this loving feeling. And if you are not used to having those warm feelings, those loving feelings, those God feelings, that in itself can be fearful. Anything that we do that is not a way that we are conditioned to be, think, or have, or experience is fearful. And it sounds so counterintuitive to think like, how can somebody be afraid of love? How can somebody be afraid of happiness? But our feelings are driving the bus. Mm-hmm. Make no mistake, your feelings are in charge of everything. So when you really start to understand how to pay attention to your feelings, how does that make me feel? How does that person make me feel? Oh, that person walked up and they ignored me. Oh, that made me feel left out. But we are not used to paying attention to our feelings Therefore, we stuff them, we shove them down. I don't know, well, you know, Mia, you and I both, you know, we're Italian, right? We're raised in a family. If you said to your mom, if I said to my mom, like, oh my gosh, Mom, I'm feeling really weird about something. She's like, what's wrong? You're fine. Go outside and play. There's nothing wrong with you. And, you know, it's not to blame the parents. It's not right or wrong. It's just that then you get conditioned as a child to say, oh gosh, there must not be anything wrong with me. Or going outside and playing will fix whatever I think is wrong with me. So we create these patterns. And then as adults, we're walking around and we're still making choices based on beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we intuited in childhood. And we can't understand why we're off balance, why we have such a difficult time manifesting the things that we really want to bring into our life. And it's such a simple answer, love and light, such a simple answer, but that doesn't mean that it's easy to get to.
Right, right. Now, you also have talked about people being fabulous, which I believe too. Well, let's talk about that, because people do not hear enough how fabulous they are, literally, and they don't feel it's okay to even sit in that space of assuming that they're fabulous, right? One goes by the dogma stuff, as you said, you know, goes back to the religion and all that, goes back to the beliefs that, you know, well, I guess that's more of a Christian belief, because when there's many different gods, you know, then you can't just, then the one God before me thing. So let's talk about that, because we believe in a loving God, in a beautiful, sharing, encompassing. So let's talk about magnificence within people.
Perfect. That's an excellent question. I always encourage people to say, I'm fabulous. When someone says to me, how are you? Or how are you doing? I always say, I'm fabulous. And I can't tell you how many people say, whoa, fabulous. Well, I'm not up to fabulous, or whoa, fabulous. I don't ever hear that. And it surprises probably 9 out of 10 people. And the thing is that when I say I'm fabulous, if someone's perception is, oh, well, you're really full of yourself, or you're really arrogant, see, there's a big difference between ego and arrogance. They don't mean the same, but people interchange them all the time. So when someone says, I'm fabulous, and then someone says, well, I'd like to be fabulous, but I just don't think that, you know, I am fabulous. Now we want to get to the root of, okay, what makes you believe that you're not fabulous? And in my case, I can tell you, my mother used to stand over me and scream in my face when I was growing up, you're nothing, you're nothing, you're never going to amount to anything, you'll never be anything. So of course, that was my big belief. And whatever you believe and the feelings that are attached to those beliefs, that's what you're going to attract to you. So it's no wonder that I really didn't have very high aspirations in my life, right? Like I wouldn't go after something because I had this deep-seated belief that I was nothing and would never amount to anything. And this is all that it is. But to say that's all that it is, it can be everything when you're trying to shift your mindset. So to go from I'm nothing to I'm fabulous, how do you close that gap? For me, it was martial arts and being introduced to the work of Jack Canfield, because at that time, his work was centered around self-esteem and building your self-esteem. And I had a cassette tape that I somehow found, came into my knowing, and that tells you how long ago it was, Mia. And I would listen to that tape over and over and over. I could still to this day probably recite pretty much of what's on that cassette tape. And every single time my belief in myself would start to dip, I would say, but Jack says, because, you know, we have to go up levels, right? Like maybe it's a, you know, someone that comes into your life and says, hey, did you know about this? And like, oh, no, I didn't. Then you get a cassette tape from someone who's out there doing this type of work. And you say, okay, well, he's doing this type of work. This is what he does for a living. So maybe he knows what he's talking about. And then you start to condition your mind that way. And then someone else comes into your life, and then someone else comes into your life. So that's why I always refer to it as leveling up. But I'll be honest with you, everything in my mind, I know I do this. I equate it to martial arts. Like you go from white belt to yellow belt to orange belt, right? So you go in as a white belt and you can only teach and work with other white belts. But then when you test for your yellow belt, now you can teach yellow belt level and white belt level. Then you test for your orange belt. Now you can do orange, yellow, white. See, and it just keeps going up like that. But every time you level up, now you say, well, yesterday I was a yellow belt. Today I'm an orange belt because I passed my test yesterday. But do I really feel like I deserve or have the ability to teach other orange belts? Oh my gosh. You know, for us in the karate studio, going up in those levels was a huge accomplishment. It took a lot of work, a lot of mind work, a lot of physical work. And I guess this is how I equate things a lot in my life. I can see myself referring back to it. It's almost like I throw it out there like the martial arts wall, and then it comes back to me, and then I speak, you know, in another way. And that's why I'm really fond of saying, as you level up, because there's not, the only difference between a person who is a white belt and a person who has a black belt is what they've learned in between. That's
Right.
it. That's it.
And you know, the nuances of who we are, you know, coaches, teachers, who we are,
Mm-hmm.
is so amazing because, as you said, it's something that you do, it's something that you are. For me, you know, sometimes I speak about God maybe too much for some people. You know, I've heard that before. My kids, for one. And it's okay because that's my reference point. That's what makes me feel comfortable. And I don't do it as much as I used to, but it is about who we are and where we are, right? That makes us magical. Your magic is this, right? This is why people come to you, because they relate, they understand, they follow that, you know. And it's beautiful for each of us. I was just, as I was listening to you, I was focusing in on how beautiful it is that each of us are so divinely, uniquely, amazingly different. You know,
Yes.
we're all the same, but we're still so fabulously different. That's part of this journey, is as we recognize who we are individually, we can so understand somebody else's beautiful journey, you know, their soul essence of who they are. That's, you know, that's a space that humanity on the love side needs to keep focusing on, needs to keep leveling up to, because
Exactly.
because that's where everything changes. You know, as people sit and watch these shows with us, they glean different information from each one. One of the things I want them to glean from this one is that they can do it, right? Even more so than just see every day, we want everybody to understand that they can do it too, but literally that they can do it. They see two women, similar, right? Friends sitting across from each other, colleagues, so different, and yet still, hey, they're both Italian. You know, they both teach us stuff. They both, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So there's
Right.
some similarities that are, you know, are similar, but we're still so uniquely different. So that's really important for people to understand. That's their uniqueness. That's their magnificence, or that's their fabulousness, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like snowflakes. You know, it's my understanding there's no two snowflakes that are alike. So one snowflake falls, another snowflake falls, but you get a bazillion snowflakes and it makes a beautiful landscape. You know, you look out and you're in awe. So that couldn't happen if one and one and one and one, you know, they weren't all adding. And that's how I always see things. It's like we always fit together. We interweave like a tapestry.
Yes.
And as each person rises up and accepts their fabulousness, their greatness, their awesomeness, their God self, then we give others the opportunity to feel that and start accepting that. And even if it's just like, well, maybe if it worked for her, it could work for me. That's a great place to start.
It is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the time flies when we're having fun. Isn't it crazy? Share with us. You have a free gift for the audience. You want to share with us your free gift, please?
I do, and I've been getting so much great feedback. That was bad grammar. A lot of great feedback on this. It's called it's a free e-guide, and it's all about eliminating and recognizing your imposter syndrome. So I think it's like a 14-page guide. So if you really take the time, first, if you download it and you really take the time to go through it and be honest with yourself and ask yourself the questions and you know, when you wait to where you feel resistance, it explains everything step by step by step. Then you'll start to see where you're not allowing yourself to play big in this life.
I love that. That's wonderful. And also, the imposter syndrome is the opposite of authenticity. And
Yes.
so those of you who seek that word that's being tossed around for years, authenticity, authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, this will be a great guide for you to download, to work through, to learn to establish what it's like to remove the imposter and step into that authenticity. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. What would you like to leave us with? Or I'm going to ask you. I surprise everyone and ask them at the end of the show what they'd like to leave us with that's on their heart and their mind. I know you shared a lot, but there's something there. There's a little nugget.
You know, I think for me, I'm going to use 2 words: think opposite. So whenever you feel yourself judging yourself, being critical of yourself, feeling less than, feeling like you can't do something, stop and say, think opposite. So if you hear yourself say, I don't have enough education, think opposite. I have plenty of education. And at first, it might feel like a lie to you, but when you learn to start thinking opposite of the negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you've been so conditioned to live with, you're going to see that your energy will change. And when your energy changes, the things that you want to manifest will change, and things will start coming into your life, and you'll think it's magic, but it's really your God self. It's you connecting to your higher self.
I love it. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And everyone, we will see you in another episode of Make Love Real, How to Create More Love in Your Life. Thanks for joining us.